So welcome to our session today for Create for Mental Health. Thank you for taking the time to join in with us. We hope that you will have a bit of fun creating and addressing mental health with us today. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll start with introductions. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, just put in where you're joining us from and what your name is. This helps us to have an understanding of who we're reaching out to in the wider education community. So please do make sure to use the chat feature. So my name is Lyndsey Stuttard. I'm a digital teaching and learning specialist for the ACS International Schools based here in the UK. I'm just an Apple Distinguished Educator as well. And I'm delighted to say that I am being joined by fellow Apple Distinguished Educators and members of the Create for a Cause team, Paul Tullock and Laurie Doran. So they are joining in with the session today. This is part of the ACS International Apple Regional Training Center. You can follow us on Twitter at ACSRTC. I'm me, one of the managers at Lyndsey, as well as our contact information, acs-schools.com and acsinternationalrtc@gmail.com. So in our session today, we really want to talk about the importance of addressing mental health, especially as educators during such a difficult last 2 years, as well as touching on what the Create for a Cause initiative is, as well as giving you the opportunity to get hands-on and create to support your mental health. So we'll be giving you some different activities that you can start with us today and then continue on independently, either over the Christmas break or bring these activities into your class as well. So the importance of addressing mental health, I think, has become more prominent in the last 2 years following the pandemic and the isolation periods and lockdown that teachers have had to continue working through. And I found this very interesting article from Harvard from this past couple of years that there was an interesting quote in there just talking about school leadership. And it said, it's not uncommon to have school leaders who sometimes sleep in their offices because they're so busy, who don't take a single break during the day. They often model, I think, unintentionally, that we can't take breaks. We can't ease up. We need to always be going full throttle. Now, I don't know if leadership is like this everywhere, but I've definitely seen and been in situations where leadership are maybe intentionally or unintentionally modeling this type of behavior, but then it does filter down to the staff. And we do look at it in the sense of going, okay, if the leadership is going at this breakneck pace, I don't want to appear weak or appear that I need more time and I have to keep up with that pace. And that really can take a toll on mental health of educators, especially who already feel overworked enough as it is, but to not feel like the mental health is being addressed by leadership through that modeling can be really impactful as well. And in that same article, there was another important quote, and it just says the most important thing that we can do for each other is just to listen. If we have the bandwidth and the time to just stop and listen to a colleague, that's just such an important first step toward healing and wholeness. And I really have taken this to heart this past year, not so much with internal staff, but actually with my wider education community that I connect with through Twitter. And that began the talk about something called Create for a Cause and how this initiative began. So it started back in February of this past year when in England, we were back in our second lockdown. And in the midst of that, I was really, really struggling with my mental health. And I reached out onto Twitter to try and connect with other Apple Distinguished Educators around the world of creating something that would give me the opportunity to be involved in a project that was more than just sitting looking at my computer screen and waiting for people at my school to ask for help. And at the time in the UK, we were getting ready to celebrate or raise awareness for Comic Relief, which is a big charity that happens here. And I was lucky enough to connect with 9 other amazing Apple Distinguished Educators from different parts of the world. And we created this book called Create for Comic Relief. It was a collaborative effort done entirely through Twitter and through Pages, where we've actually never met each other, but managed to put together 10 different activities based around creative elements such as photography, video, drawing, music, and augmented reality that was put up for free in the iBook store to support other educators. And my whole goal for it was just to have that connection back with other people that thought like I did and that liked to create. And it actually has gone further than what I had anticipated. So here we are, sort of 10 months later, with 8 books already published, all based around different causes and different topics that really speak to us as educators, as global educators, and ways that we can try and incorporate technology and creativity to raise awareness for these different causes. And one of those books is going to be the topic that we're going to be looking at today for this session. So I will just defer over to my co-presenters if there's anything you want to add on about the Create for a Cause initiative and how it has helped your mental health this past 10 months.
Yes, do you want me to join to say something?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul.
So exactly like Lyndsey said, at the time when lockdown came, it was a real struggle. We were trying to find ways to engage our own school communities, and the Create for Cause, the first book, was just fantastic because, as Lyndsey said, we never met. We just managed to jump on a Pages collaborative document and we came up with all these great ideas, and it really fostered a lovely community. And I was also struggling because I felt like I wasn't having any impact, and this was a chance to not only impact inside my own class but also on the wider community, and it's just been one of the best projects that I've been involved in.
Laurie, anything you want to add for your experience with the books?
Sure. So I actually did not jump on in the very beginning. At that point, well, I was in the United States, first of all, but it was a little different here. But I was actually at that time so swamped in my classroom and with the whole thing and my own struggles with all of this that I wasn't even on Twitter. So I missed the first call and then jumped on a little bit later. But it has been fantastic to be able to collaborate with people who share a vision for creativity and supporting others. So all of the lessons in here are so good and easy to deliver with your students. So it's just been really a nice spot for me to join in and, work with others for creativity.
Thanks, Laurie, and thanks, Paul, for sharing your insight. It really has been such an impactful project, and I think the more that we keep putting these books out, the more connected we're all getting, but also to the wider education community, and hopefully are having the impact that we aim, which is definitely creating for the cause, but getting students to use technology and raise awareness where they live for sort of grassroots initiatives in their area. So one of the topics that we're looking at today, obviously, is mental health and how creativity can be used to support that. And for that, I'm going back to the third book that we produced, which was called Create for Mental Health. And this was managed by one of our ADEs, Simon Pyle, who's just an incredible ADE to be involved with, and put this wonderful template together that we all then got to be involved with. So each book has information about the book, and then also a specific quote relating to the topic or the cause that we're raising awareness about. And what we aim to do as well is include charities that also support and raise awareness or raise funding or advocate for these different causes all over the world. So they could be UK based, they could be European, they could be South African, Australian, American. It's not limited to just one specific location. And then we have contributors from different parts of the world, all who are sort of experts in their own right in different creative elements that volunteer an activity forward for the book. As well as talking about the different types of creative ways that we can raise awareness through our video making, through photography, through music, through drawing, and through augmented reality. And I think we will be starting to introduce coding in January in our next book, of how you can use coding as a way to raise awareness and be creative as well. So what we've done is pull 3 of our activities from the Create for Mental Health book that are going to be starting today, and then you can continue on with them once the session has ended. So we have activity number 1, which is called No Place I'd Rather Be. It's inspired by one of the ADE's, Tom Consek's activity in the book, and that's going to be done by Laurie. The second activity is called Doodle Your Emotions. It's inspired by Chris Galley's activity in the book, and we're going to have sort of a holiday theme to that. And then the third activity is actually Paul's activity called Holiday Meditation Monster. So we're going to jump right in and hand it over to Laurie, who is going to take us through that activity, No Place I'd Rather Be. Okay. So do you want to try, Laurie, and we'll see?
I can try, let's try this first. Okay, so in this, what Tom's thought was that we would take a picture of your classroom and try to transport yourself somewhere better. So seeing if we can leave the chaos of our everyday. So is it going? Okay, so nope, Lyndsey, it doesn't seem to be popping up. I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. Let's see. Okay, so we're gonna just do it a different way. We're gonna insert our photo. Because why not? There's more than one way to do something, right? I'm just gonna take instant alpha right on here. See if I can.
There we go.
It's gonna be a slower process.
So the idea behind this activity is to take a photograph of a window or an outdoor space near you, and then to clear out the view that you actually see and to layer behind where you actually would rather be at this time of year. So maybe if it's very cold and very rainy, or there's a lot of snow, you might want to change your view and pick somewhere else that is a bit more pleasing this time of year.
So I'm just going to take this one section out to just speed this along a little bit. So using instant alpha, you can, like, I love it because you can kind of like, it's like Photoshop for me.
Exactly. And it's a very simple tool for really any age to use. It doesn't require a lot of photography skills, but it teaches them a new way of being able to utilize Keynote in maybe a fashion that they haven't done previously. So it's a very powerful tool, and I think Laurie is doing it justice here.
So now we're going to add in. We're just going to focus on this little window here. Another photo, somewhere I might rather be. And in here, I'm going to go to format and then arrange, and I'm going to drop this to the back. Okay, and then you can see I'm in a much nicer place. So I would rather be watching those waves crash than looking at this gray park outside of my atmosphere here. And I was thinking, if I wanted, you could also in here pick up your drawing tools again. And I could come in here. Let's see if it's going to let me draw. Maybe I could add. No, for whatever reason, it's not letting me draw. Okay, so we're just going to go here and I'm going to stay in my happy space. Enjoying the waves. To export this, I'm going to just go export and then images. And then I'm going to choose JPEG. And I am going to hit save. And that will come out in my camera roll.
Lovely.
So we'll go in here, go back, here's mine. And then I can just go in here and kind of cheating the system here, edit this down. I have a nice little frame. And I can reframe my vision here.
Love it. Thank you so much, Laurie, for that. So we're going to move to the Doodle Your Holiday Emotions now. Let's check that. I should be able to draw on this one. I've created a new keynote thanks to Paul's suggestion. So I need to be able to draw. So we're going to make a quick change here. There we go. So if you do end up downloading the book, this is inspired by Chris Galley, and this is probably, I think, one of the most popular activities out of all of the books, because it is so easy to use. It's so simple a concept, and it can really relate to any age. And I've had high school teachers that will just sit and do little doodles. So the idea is to just create a little type of doodle that represents how you are feeling, or how you could represent a particular emotion. So I thought, well, why not use this, and we'll doodle how we feel about the holidays. So just on a new keynote, you could do a slide per emotion that you're feeling, but I'm going to go ahead and put them all sort of side by side, and I'm going to use the crayon for this one, which was the one that Chris had recommended. And I'm going to just write down the names of some of the things that I like to do during the holidays and how it makes me feel. So I was thinking about baking cookies is something I really love to do. Thinking about mistletoe. Thinking about wrapping presents. Trying to think of a couple more. Oh, snow. When it's snowing outside, and then when it's cold. So still sticking with the crayon, baking cookies, I'm going to try and pick sort of a brown color. I'm just going to make it more like a cookie shape. Sort of scribbling all around, and then I want to make sure to give sort of legs to it as well. Maybe this one is quite full. Got an upset tummy now from all the cookies it's eaten. So giving it some little eyes. And maybe now it's a bit tired. Oh goodness. Too many cookies. So quite full. Now thinking about mistletoe, mistletoe is green. And maybe I'll do a doodle that hopefully resembles maybe how mistletoe could potentially look. I think that's some white in there as well. And then I'm going to kind of do some loving eyes. Maybe feeling a little bit shy. And then wrapping presents. If you've got kids, it might be the bane of your existence. And usually how it ends up with me with the tape is a bit all over the place. Tape just goes everywhere, or it goes missing, or the ribbons are all over and it's a bit helter-skelter. and it can make me infuriated sometimes. So sometimes I end up just sitting on the floor, arms kind of crossed, going, no more. Maybe some angrier eyes. And then when it's snowing outside, back to my grid here. Maybe this is a bit of gentle snow, but it still has a very positive effect. Sort of looking up at the sky. I'm feeling incredibly happy that it's snowing. And then when it gets very, very cold, we don't want to move around a lot. So this might be very, very small little doodle here. And it's very, very cold. And so there we have just a fun way of representing how you feel about the different things that you do at the holidays that you really enjoy, and just a simple little doodle. And it can be very therapeutic to just sit and do this and get lost in it. And then sitting with your students and doing this together as a class activity or as a class approach. It's very interesting to see then what they come up with. So that is doodling your emotions. And maybe you don't want to be specific and say what activity it relates to. It could just be all the different feelings that you have when it's the holidays or when it's Christmas time. So you could just choose to represent those how you want. So I will now hand this off to Paul, who's going to take us into our third activity to get started with.
Lyndsey, I'll just say I did that last activity with my students on the first day of school, and they absolutely loved it. It was like, how are you feeling coming back to school after 2 years? And they had so much fun. It's a good one.
It's a wonderful one. And just the fact, like you said, to do it right after coming back, after being gone for 2 years, really helps them to narrow that focus of go, right, we're not just going to come in and pretend that everything hasn't just happened. We want to acknowledge what it is that you're feeling when you're coming back, because it has been such a monumental shift. So thank you for sharing that, Laurie.
Yeah, and it's so easy as well, which is another beautiful thing about it. It's just a really simple thing to do, and it's accessible by any age. I'm going to share the holiday meditation monster. Now, this came about with my son during lockdown, couldn't play for his football team, and he was getting really angry around the house, kicking footballs everywhere. And I kept saying, calm down and breathe. And what I thought was, if only he had the Apple Watch with the breathe and the mindfulness activity on. And the idea was that he could draw his own meditation monster and make this. And whenever he felt angry, he could spend 10 seconds or 30 seconds calming down. So hopefully, just going to move to the next slide. So hopefully there's a little kind of idea here about how it works. And I'm going to show you how to make it today. Now, this is one that I've just quickly made before, the Grinch, and this is what it could look like. So I'm just going to skip that on. So what you can see is it's very, it's kind of keynote drawing, and you animate the drawing, and you animate it in such a way that the monster looks like it's breathing. So I'm going to take you through how I would make one of those just now. So hopefully you can see my iPad on the screen.
Yep.
And I'm just going to open Keynote, just a blank presentation. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove everything off the slides. And I'm just going to go into split screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a nice background, just a festive background. Now, some great websites, Unsplash, Pexels, but I like to use Pixabay, and I've just searched for Christmas background, and somewhere down the bottom is that really lovely one that I used before. And what you can do is you can simply hold it down and you can add it to your photos, or you could copy it, or you could just quite simply drag it across. I'm just going to set that as my background. And what I'm going to do now is just hit the paintbrush in the top corner. I'm going to hit arrange, and I'm going to lock that background just to make it a bit easier so that when I move my finger on the screen, nothing's happening. And the other thing that I want to do is, because I'm not a fantastic drawer, or I can draw, but it takes me a long time, is I like to use Flat Icon, which is a great website to use with students. And I've just searched for the Grinch there. And here's the Grinch here. And I'm just going to take that Grinch and I'm just going to drop him onto the screen. And what's lovely is the Grinch there, really nice vector graphic, but with no backgrounds. So it gives you a chance to just make presentations pop just that little bit more. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go to the top corner. I'm going to hit the paintbrush, and I'm just going to, on that image that I've just dropped in, I want to trace over that image to make it my own. So I'm going to hit style, and I'm going to reduce the opacity just ever so slightly. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the drawing tools. So I'm just going to take my iPad off my keyboard for a second, and I'm just going to go to plus, and then I'm going to go to the drawing tools. And from here, I'm quite simply going to trace over the top of the Grinch. So I'm just going to get my pen tools in the right place. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to choose the colors that I want. Go for that one. And I'm just going to very simply trace around the outside. I'm just going to leave that a little bit there just to add a bit of shading. Join that across the top, and I'm going to use the fill tool now to do exactly this. I'll come back to do the fill tool afterwards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the darker shade of green, which is that one there. And I'm just going to draw the eyebrows on, draw the eyes, and that evil Grinch mouth. And just go around the outside. And now I'm going to use the fill tool. So I'm going to fill the face in. I'm also going to fill in the darker shaded areas, the mouth, the eyebrow. Oops, a bit too key in there. Just zoom in a little bit. And hopefully that one's going to fill in as well. I'm just going to very quickly just go over my drawing and just make sure that I've got it filled in. So I'm just going to do all the white parts. On the Santa Claus collar there. Again, we're going to use the fill tool just to fill those in. And we will just go for the last little bit, the red part. Just on the top there. And we'll just do the same here. Now, of course, you could create your own monster, and you could make that look exactly how you want it to be. I just thought the Grinch was a nice little festive kind of experiment here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tap on that drawing. I'm just going to move that drawing to the side. And now that I've traced around the outside, my drawing, I've just removed the drawing from the background. And I've got my Grinch there. And I think what I will do is just pop this back on the stand so you can see the mouse. I think what I will do is I will add a little bit of speech. So I'm just going to go into add a speech bubble very quickly. We want someone to tell him to calm down and stop being so mean. So we just tap in there. Why so mean, Mr. Grinch? Relax and what we could do is, obviously I've spelled Grinch wrong, so I'm just going to change that. And what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to animate that speech bubble so it just pops in. So I'm just going to tap onto the speech bubble, tap again, hit animate, and just choose a built-in action. So we might go for keyboard. Quite simply there's the first slide. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to tap and I'm going to duplicate the slide. And this time I'm just going to remove that speech bubble. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in just a little bit again, and I'm going to use the pen tools. And because I've duplicated it, I'm just going to change the expression on the Grinch's face. So we're just going to choose the pen tool. And we're just going to rub out some of these bits there, or just color over the top. And I may want to add in a slide as well with some animation that tells him to close his eyes. But just for the purposes of this, just to show you how easy this is to do, I'm just going to kind of draw his eyes closed and a little mouth. So he's trying to calm down. He's trying to be a bit peaceful. Really simple, really easy to do. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out, make sure that he looks okay. And this time, I'm just very simply going to animate the slide. So I'm going to go to transition, just when I come out with the drone feature there. So come out with that drone feature. I'm going to go to transition. And this time I'm going to use magic move. And I'm going to add magic move in. Now, what magic move does, if you haven't used it before, it will ask you, do you want to duplicate the slide? And whatever you move on the second slide that you just duplicated, it will magically move it into position. It's a fantastic tool to use with all ages. You can get some really lovely animations in there. So now that I've got, there's my original slide. Just want to make sure that magic move has gone in there, which it has. And then on the second slide, what I'm going to do is I'm quite simply going to stretch the Grinch out and make him big. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the transition again. And this time I want to focus on breathing for around about 4 to 5 seconds. So a nice big breath in for 4 seconds. What should happen is we're just going to play it just to see what it looks like. So we've got, there's the Grinch. There's the animation, relax and breathe. He's closed his eyes. And then when we use magic move for 4 seconds, what should happen is, just like the mindfulness app on the Apple Watch, you should breathe in for 4 seconds. And then from here, we're just going to do exactly the same again. We are going to use magic move. We're going to transition again. And we're going to use magic move again. It's going to ask us, do you want to duplicate? Yes, we do. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to shrink the Grinch back down. And he will breathe in. And then what we could do is we could copy again. You could copy the slides if you so wished, or you could keep going through that process. And what you should have at the end of it is you'll be able to play your animation with your instructions on. By so me, Mr. Grinch, relax and breathe. Close your eyes. We may want to add that in. 4 seconds breath in. And that one, I didn't change the timing on that one. So what I'm just going to do now is I'm going to go back to transition. And it's important just to remember, just to make sure that you've got the right amount of time for a breath. And we're going to do the same again on this one. And we could repeat over and over again. Now, the way that I did this with, first of all, my son, and then set it as a challenge for my class was I would basically repeat that about 10 times. So it's 10 deep breaths. And then by the end of the 10 deep breaths, he was calm and he was able to relax and reevaluate what it was that was making him upset. Very simply, I'm just going to copy that there, just copy it to the next page. And we'll just, we'll add that in and we'll just say, take a nice deep breath and breathe. And then just something that makes it just that little bit more special or that little bit easier to see when you export it as a video, which I'll show you how to do now, is if you go to the transition and if you go to automatic, you can just adjust the time. So it gives you just a few seconds to read that speech bubble before it pings off and goes to the next one. And that would be the same there. What you would do from here is quite simply hit the 3 dots, export as a movie, choose the slide range, which is all in this instance. And I like to just remove these, go to next slide, 0 seconds, and go to next build, 0 seconds. Quite simply, hit export. Save the video. And then from there, what I like to do is, just to give it a nice festive background, is just get my head out the way there, drop it straight into clips, go to the soundtrack, and there is a lovely soundtrack that I like right at the bottom called Sleigh Ride for holiday festive. But also, if you were doing this and you wanted to be a bit calmer, there is a lot of really nice tunes in the sentimental section as well, and in the chill section. And it's just a really lovely activity to do, to get pupils to personalize their own monster and then animate it, so they can, if they ever get angry, they can breathe in and out for however long it needs to be. So that's my activity.
So Paul, when you did this with your students, did you find that not just the creation of the animation and the application of it, but actually the creative process to create what it was at the time, which was the meditation monster, did that help as well, just to be able to do that creative part before then the application of the breathing?
It was so calm and relaxing. It was a real moment of mindfulness, and even the most lively pupils found it really enjoyable. And most of the process as well was the fact that they could swap their ideas, and they were looking at each other's monsters and they were adding different things. And then afterwards, after they had animated it and put their own soundtracks on, they all wanted to airdrop them and share them with each other so they could have a go at each other's monsters as well, which was a fantastic thing to use as well. So yeah, it just, the whole process was lovely, but the outcome was that they had it on their iPad and they could use it whenever they needed to.
Oh, fantastic. I love the fact that they were then sharing them and having a go with each other's. That's just wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So I'll just jump back in now. So in our presentation here, so we've done the different activities, the doodle your emotions, the anywhere but here, and then the holiday meditation monster. All of those activities are in the Create for Mental Health book. We've just happened to put a holiday spin on them. And so I just want to get to the end here. Remind you that a lot of the inspiration from these activities starts with the basics, which can be found in the Everyone Can Create books, particularly the drawing and the photography activities, talking about things like Instant Alpha, the drawing tools available, and how you can make use of them, even if you're not at this level yet, just to get started. And I want to say a special thank you to my co-presenters, Paul and Laurie, for taking the time to jump in our session today. And we'll just open it up if there are any questions.